Turn on the VM.
One, change the computer name and add a description in System Properties.
Check the changed computer name after rebooting.
Two, configure DNS IP settings. AD is a network directory service based on DNS. AD uses SRV Service Locator records to store the locations of domain controllers, DC, global catalogs, GC, and Kerberos authentication servers, KDC, in DNS. Additionally, in an AD domain environment, communication between clients and servers, as well as policy management, is conducted through DNS. As a result, DNS is essential in an AD environment. In the following steps, DNS will be installed together with this AD server, which will become the domain controller. Therefore, the DNS IP is set to the loopback IP, which is the local host. Ultimately, this server will function as an AD server, DNS, and domain controller.
Set the DNS IP to localhost loopback. Check the changed DNS IP.
Three, install the Active Directory role in Server Manager.
This page provides precautions before adding roles. If you check skip this page by default, it will be skipped in future instances. To add the Active Directory Domain Services role, you must select the role-based or feature-based installation method. This installation method is required to promote the server to a domain controller. The Remote Desktop Services installation method is used to set up a server that provides a remote desktop environment. This method is not related to Active Directory. The server selection stage is the process of selecting the server on which Active Directory domain services will be installed. By default, the Select a Server from the Server Pool option is selected. From the server pool, select the current server for Active Directory installation, ADDS. The server role stage is the step for selecting the roles to be installed for Active Directory configuration. In this stage, Active Directory domain services and DNS server are added. The management tools that are automatically added during the installation of Active Directory domain services are included. The administrative tools include Group Policy Management, which allows centralized management of policies applied to users and computers within the domain. Additionally, tools for managing server roles, PowerShell modules for managing Active Directory, GUI tools, and command line tools for Active Directory configuration are also included. Active Directory internally uses DNS to manage communication between domain controllers, clients, and resources within the domain. Since a domain controller must register DNS information for its own domain, a DNS server is required. If DNS is installed along with the domain controller, AD-related records are automatically registered. If there is no DNS server during Active Directory installation, a warning may appear. On the server where DNS is installed, the PowerShell module for DNS management and the GUI-based management console are essential, so they should be included. In the next feature step, the necessary features for Active Directory to function properly are automatically selected when installing Active Directory domain services. These include Group Policy Management, a tool for creating and managing group policies, and Remote Server Administration tools, which allow remote management of Active Directory and DNS. This page is an informational guide that provides a brief overview of Active Directory domain services. This page provides guidance on the importance of DNS configuration to ensure the proper operation of Active Directory domain services. This is the final step where the user confirms the selected roles and features. It can be seen that all necessary components for configuring the Active Directory environment, including ADDS, DNS, GPO, and our SAT, have been selected. Check the automatic restart option and click the Install button to proceed with the installation.
Four, promote the server to a domain controller.
Once the installation is complete, Click Promote this server to a domain controller to configure this server as a domain controller that manages Active Directory. A domain controller is responsible for managing user and computer accounts within the domain, authentication, authorization, and group policy management. The following is the initial configuration process for the domain controller. Since this process involves setting up a new Active Directory environment, select the Add a New Forest option. When creating a new forest, you must specify the root domain, which serves as the top-level domain. As an example, we will set the root domain to ghey.com. The root domain will act as the primary domain for all user accounts, policies, and network resources within the organization. The following is the step for configuring domain controller options. A forest is the top-level concept that encompasses the entire Active Directory. A single forest can contain multiple domains. The forest functional level determines the features available across the entire forest. For example, if the forest functional level is set to Windows Server 2012 R2, only servers running 2012 R2 or higher can be added as domain controllers. The domain functional level determines the features available within a specific domain. It must be equal to or lower than the forest functional level. For example, if the forest functional level is 2012 R2, the domain functional level can be 2008 but cannot be 2016. If there are future plans for migration to a higher Windows Server version considering the OS end of life EOL, it is advisable to set the functional level to 2012 R2 to allow for greater flexibility. The Domain Controller Role Selection section has Domain Name System DNS and Global Catalog GC checked by default. The Global Catalog serves as the database for Active Directory, storing critical information from all domains within the forest to enable fast searches across the entire environment. The Read-Only Domain Controller, or ODC, is a domain controller that cannot be modified and is primarily deployed in security-sensitive locations such as branch offices. When creating the first Active Directory domain, the domain controller must be set as a read-write domain controller or WDC, which is why the RODC checkbox is disabled. The Directory Services Restore Mode DSRM password is used to boot into safe mode and recover Active Directory in case of corruption or system failure. The following is the DNS options configuration step. The warning message at the top indicates that Active Directory attempted to configure DNS delegation while creating a new domain, but it could not find an authoritative parent DNS server, preventing the delegation from being created. Since we are setting up a new Active Directory environment, DNS delegation is not required in this case. Therefore, the warning message can be ignored, and the installation can proceed without any issues. The following is the additional options configuration step. Here, the NetBIOS domain name can be verified and modified if necessary. NetBIOS is an old network protocol used to identify computers on a network. Although DNS is now the primary method, the NetBIOS domain name is still required for compatibility in Windows environments. The NetBIOS domain name is automatically generated based on the Active Directory domain name. In the current screen, the NetBIOS name has been automatically generated as GHEY. The following is the step for specifying the storage locations of the Active Directory Domain Services database, log files, and sysvol folder. The database folder stores ntds.dit, the core Active Directory database. The log files folder contains database transaction logs. And the sysvol folder is a shared folder within the domain, which is replicated across all domain controllers to maintain consistent policies. The sysvol folder also stores group policy settings and login scripts. For now, these folders will be assigned to their default locations on the C drive. In the next steps, the D drive will be formatted, and then the paths for these folders will be migrated to the D drive. This screen is the final review stage for the Active Directory Domain Services configuration options set so far. After verifying the settings, proceed to the next step. The prerequisite check has been successfully passed before proceeding with the final installation of Active Directory Domain Services. The Install button can now be clicked to begin the installation. The yellow warnings indicate information that requires attention but are not critical errors that prevent installation.
Five, verify the Active Directory environment using Active Directory management tools. After installing Active Directory Domain Services and applying additional configurations, run the Microsoft Management Console snap-in to check whether the domain environment has been successfully configured. Six, check the domain registration status in the Active Directory Domain Controller Management Console.
Use a command to check the domain information of the currently logged-in user. When executed in a domain environment, it displays the domain name, and in a local environment, it displays the computer name. Use a command to check the domain controller responsible for flexible single master operations (FSMO) roles. FSMO roles are categorized into 5 main types, providing functions such as Active Directory schema modifications, adding and removing domains, and updating object references between domains.